Welcome to another edition of the GreenBaje podcast. As always, that is AJ. He is the Green. I am Ken. I am the Beige. And this is another edition of the GreenBaje podcast. Now, today, for the first time ever, we have a guest. We have Justin Marville of This Just In. He is joining us here today as we get into one last week of talk before the season begins. Gentlemen, welcome. How are you doing?
I am doing awesome. Like, it's been long overdue. You know what was happening behind the scenes, so I really wanted to get here and make this an all Caribbean podcast. Sorry, AJ, but the Bajan boys may team up on you today. So,
to be fair, I am Bajan born, so I still fit in.
oh,
So yeah. But yeah, I'm Justin, really glad to have you here today. Yeah, it's an exciting time, right? So just really glad to have more company to talk about this, about all of these stories that are going on.
oh, for sure, because they had to repay the the favor as y'all were on my show, and I had an absolute blast. So
that was incredible too. That was incredible too. So glad we could return the favor and have you here today.
Yep, definitely. And of course, as we always remind you guys, you will see this on Wednesday, but we're recording on a Tuesday evening. So forgive us if we have a few Freudian slips where we say tomorrow or today or yesterday or what have you. No, as per usual, we start by going off the rip. And off the rip, football starts tomorrow. We've gone through all of the preseason. We've gone through all of the roster moves and everything. Football starts tomorrow. And we have the week 1 of the NFL kicking off with the Dallas Cowboys, supposedly America's team, hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 8:20 p.m. Eastern. Now, of course, this being the first week of the season, everybody's playing. So, Justin, as you are our guest here today, who are you looking for? Which game are you looking at the most for this first week?
Well, obviously outside of Oregon, Ken, because just so happens you and I match up in the first week of the season.
It is true.
Outside of obviously Packers Saints, it's tomorrow night. There's so many questions, particularly on Dallas's end. How will Dak Prescott look? How will the Cowboys' offensive line hold up with Zach Martin out due to COVID-19 protocols? I also expect the champs to actually be better this season. Like, could you believe the defending Super Bowl champs who have returned all 22 starters, 11 on both sides of the field of the ball, could actually be better because Tom Brady said he was injured last season playing with a hurt knee. Now he says he's feeling as good as a 24-year-old. Now they return O.J. Howard to that offense. It's already had Mike Evans and already had Chris Godwin. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Thursday night.
Nice. Okay. AJ, what's your pick?
That was actually my pick as well. That is my pick. Like that, I guess it also comes with just the feeling from of knowing that football is back generally. But that initial game is it for me though, because it's kind of like everything that Justin just outlined. The Bucs being able to reassemble the team, the squad, basically running it back, and then the questions on what is happening to Dak Prescott. Because Ken, well, we in fantasy and nobody left Dak Prescott on the waiver wire. Everyone picked him up, so men expecting this man to play.
Mm-hmm.
He's expected to play, right? But you know how Jerry's been in the off season, in the preseason so far. So he's been making headlines for the wrong reason. So my interest is just peaked from minute 1. You would think I would say the Pats, right? But no. I really want to see this Thursday night game firstly, and then take it from there.
So the interesting thing for me is that both of you picked the same game, and that game, it kicks the season off. Yes, it's the first game of the year, but that game doesn't rate that highly for me compared to a lot of the others on the schedule. The main reason because I don't expect it to be much of a contest. I don't anticipate that the Cowboys defense is going to be that great. And their offense, well, their offense can be elite if everybody's fit. Well, we shall see. However, the game that has me most intrigued for what's happening on Sunday is the Kansas City Chiefs. They are going to be playing against the Browns. No, this is a rough game for both squads right out the gate. You know what the Browns are about? The Browns are all about ball control. They're all about time of possession and making sure that they're going to try to keep the Chiefs off the field as much as possible, similar to what they tried to do last season in the playoffs. But we know that the Chiefs are this juggernaut of an offensive team. And when you look at the speed that they have on offense, it's interesting to see what they're going to be able to do because I don't know about you guys, but at one point in time during the preseason, I actually heard a commentator say that the league is starting to figure out Patrick Mahomes. And it was like, where is he putting his mouth to say that? Because I'll throw it out to you. Do you think the league is figuring out Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah, they're figuring out a guy who's been to 3 straight AFC title games and back-to-back Super Bowls. Yeah, good job figuring out that, right? Let's come off it. No, this is absolute rubbish. If you have figured out this guy by now, would the team have made 3 straight AFC games or title games? Sorry, and the answer is no. The reality is good players win games, and that's what it is. You have a burner in Tyreek Hill, who is a threat to take the top off the defense every single possession. And because of that, you open up the underneath where Travis Kelce lives. I expect either this season or next season, Travis Kelce is going to break the receptions record. You heard it here first. I expect him. That is how good he is. And with the additional 17th game, yeah, I expect at some point, either this season or next season, him to break, that record. They just shored up their one weakness across the entire roster, which was that offensive line. No, this is a guy that can make throws from any position, every arm angle, does not need a solid platform or solid base to make these throws, as they call it, off platform. The league has not figured out Patrick Mahomes, and we're going to find that out this coming Sunday.
AJ?
That's so laughable to me, right? The notion. I mean, to be difficult. If someone had said that, I would probably reply to them by saying, "All right, well, okay, so they figured him out. Can they stop him though? Whether or not they figured him out, that seems pretty inconsequential to me. The fact of the matter is, he can't be stopped. The only thing that's will stop Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. Clearly on the Bucs defense a little bit last year, but as Justin just alluded to, like, they've really shored up the offensive line. They put a lot of work into making sure that Patrick is protected and he doesn't have to keep scrambling on plays this season. So I think it's just a silly notion in any case. No matter how you word it, the fact of the matter is he can't be stopped.
Well, the interesting thing, during that same broadcast, they made mention of one thing that Patrick Mahomes himself has said, and that he said that he was going to be working on during this offseason, which was that his feet tend to get happy in the pocket. He is not known to be a running quarterback, but the things that we tend to hear the running quarterbacks do are things that he himself tends to do at times, which is he gets in the pocket and then the clock is ticking in your head and you're recognizing, oh, wait, I need some more time. But rather than slide up in the pocket or just maneuver the pocket, then he takes off and runs outside the pocket. So he said that he himself was trying to work on that so that he could stop doing that so much. So if he found a flaw in his game and he was working on it, good luck to the rest of the NFL. No,
I will say this, Ken, before you move on. There is one way to stop the Kansas City Chiefs offense, and that is, as AJ said, to keep them on the sideline. And so, to your point, this is going to be a good game because if there's a team or a couple teams that can do that, Cleveland Browns probably head this.
Yes.
We all know Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, and they have the ability to run the football, control time of possession, which they did in that AFC divisional matchup unfortunate situation. As we all know, Rashard Higgins stupidly extended for the end zone loss in football, and they go on to lose by
I'm
1-4.
really glad you brought that up, Justin. I'll tell you a story afterwards, right? Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good, AJ. So, yeah, this match should be good because if there is one way to stop the Kansas City Chiefs offense, it's to keep them on the side where they're not going to be able to score points from.
So let me give you a little flashback here, right? So I'm glad you mentioned that point about Rashard Higgins like extending and losing the ball, right? Because Ken and I had a little debate about that after that game last season, and I was saying, to me, what he did was stupid too. I thought it was stupid because like you don't even have your balance. Why are you trying to extend? Like you already got the first down though. You got the down. You made because I can't remember how many yards they needed on the play or whatnot, but they would have had a first down. Essentially, like take that. Don't try to make a play when you're off balance. Ken didn't see so much of an issue with it, but I thought it was incredibly dumb and naive to do that at that stage.
We don't see much of an issue because we don't play football, but coaches apparently drill this in their players. Do not extend for the pylon if you do not have full control in football. They drill this into players. And I mean, I guess adrenaline takes over. Like, you see the end zone there and you try to score because you don't know what's going to happen in the next 2, 3, 4 plays. But damn, like, if your coaches tell you do not extend for the pylon if you do not have full control of the football, and that play ends up.
That's all I was saying, Master Ken. That's all I was saying. That's all I was saying.
Even though it is no 2 versus 1 on that particular point, my position still remains. Football is a game of inches, and if you have an opportunity to get into the end zone, you have to take it, because you could get on the half-inch line and get stopped 4 times and still don't get in. And at the end of the day, too, one of the things that came up after that we didn't really make mention of, but the fact was that Sorensen, the safety who hit him, it was a helmet-to-helmet hit. That was a foul. So the foul would have negated the turnover of possession. But the rest didn't call it. You have to go for it. If you got it, we would not be having this particular conversation.
I realize you intend to go down with that sinking ship, right? But that's all right. We move.
Yeah, that is a hill. That is a hill that I have planted my flag and I'm willing to die on. Okay. Now, right, one other thing that I did want to make quick mention of with regards to this first week, as Justin mentioned, my Saints, we're supposed to be the home team against his Packers. But we are playing in Jacksonville because, as I made mention of last week, Hurricane Ida, the situation is still quite dire in Louisiana and in New Orleans in particular. Therefore, we are on the road for a home game. But hopefully, my Saints can do what needs to be done to put some smiles on the faces of folks back home in New Orleans. So, that was off the rip. No, I made mention, I teased this last week. This situation with Bishop Sycamore. Justin, did you see what happened with this Bishop Sycamore story?
I saw what happened. I read what happened. I got a story from a former player. I read that. I think is on either on the Athletic or ESPN. I can't remember where I read that. From a former high school player who went into depth of that situation. I'm like, wow. Just wow. I don't have much to say on the situation itself other than this offbeat take here, because like Bishop Sycamore, I don't even know what to say about that. But the story itself, ESPN, I think we're seeing the unraveling of the worldwide leader of sports in front of our very own eyes. Like,
yes,
I don't know, like, how you are the world's leading sports network and get duped into covering this high school without doing any sort of background checks. And I say that, and I mean, I don't want to sound so harsh, but Ken, you know me personally, I served as a sports journalist back home in Barbados. That would not have happened to me. That's what, so I don't understand what is going on here. And over these last 5 years, it's just one fiasco after another with ESPN, whether it's this Bishop Sycamore situation, whether it is the Next fiasco with Maria Taylor and Rachel Nichols, the worst handled situation I've ever seen in an entire workplace. I don't understand. And then after that, you're seeing one front-facing talent after another leave ESPN. This is a network that we all grew up in the late 80s, early 90s. This is what we grew up in sports. This is indeed the worldwide leader of sports. And to see them just unraveling in front of our very eyes is just really disheartening.
It is indeed. AJ, your take?
No, I think Justin eloquently put surmised the whole Bishop Sycamore situation. But further, I to kind of like piggyback off of his point with regards to ESPN, it's kind of, I guess as we grow older, we kind of realize that not all that glitters is gold, because I don't think that all of these, it's not like these issues just started happening. They have been happening for years at ESPN, but I think we have a greater understanding, and obviously due to like social media and so on, there's a lot more is more accessible by us regular folk, right? I mean, there's even a situation, I don't know the full story, none of us do, but we saw like the clip today of Joe Budden talking about the issue with Max Kellerman on being on First Take and whatnot. Like, something had to have happened there that they decided to remove Max from that show. We're probably not going to find out what it is, probably maybe until later on when Max actually leaves ESPN. But yeah, I really agree with you, Justin. Like, it's sad. It is really sad that an organization of that magnitude and caliber is having such issues. Like, and in this case, as you said, this was pure negligence. It was just negligence.
You want to talk about the Max Kellerman situation? I can summarize it in 3 words: Stephen A. Smith.
For sure. For sure. You say it, not me. I ain't gonna say it, but yeah.
I was gonna say, you've given this man complete control over almost everything, and now the direction in which you see First Take, a show which I personally never liked anyhow, the direction in which you're taking First Take is now just a bunch of people screaming, and you can see the rotation of hosts is all Stephen A. friends, whether it be Michael Irvin on Mondays, or, well, I personally like Marcus Spears on Tuesdays, Tim Tebow on Friday. I think sometime during the week is Paul Feinbaum. This is Stephen A. Smith handpicking the people who he wants on this show. And he already has his own show in Stephen A.'s world. Just wow.
I didn't even think about that part. You're right.
No, for me, it's interesting that ESPN could find themselves in the situation that they did with this particular game with Bishop Sycamore. Bishop Sycamore, to me, is their photo needs to go into the dictionary next to the term "fake it till you make it," because clearly they faked it so well that they got this prestigious game when they're not even assigned or aligned with the Ohio State Football Commission. The team is just a team that they put together, and they claim they had all of these 5-star recruits. Of course, at this point, nobody could prove if you're going to be a 5-star recruit because you haven't been recruited officially. So that was their argument. However, if that's the argument, at least put something on the field then that gives someone some level of credence. Now, where ESPN is concerned, I believe that ESPN, the juggernaut that it is too big to fail. But the problem that they're going to find themselves with is that on the sports side, in terms of just broadcasts and games and stuff, nobody can touch them. But when it comes now to the personality side of it, because the majority of the personalities that I guess you could say those of us in our generation have grown up with, and we have developed some level of attachment to, most of them are gone. And others are going to follow. So you're going to find then that, like Maria Taylor, as soon as her contract was up at ESPN, she was covering the Olympics at NBC. That was one of the big things that got Mike Tirico to leave ESPN to go over to NBC. You have people like the NBA analyst, I do not remember his name right now, that left ESPN and went over to Fox. You have a lot of people who are leaving ESPN are popping up at these other networks. Now, a lot of them, we might say, are not necessarily the ones that we want to hear too often, like Marcellus Whitey and what's his name that just got fired from Fox too. I can see his face, and his name is not coming, so that probably tells you everything.
Just did.
But a lot of these guys are going elsewhere, and they're making careers in themselves. As I read somewhere, they said that just because you leave ESPN, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a step down. It's just, it could be like a lateral shift. You can get more money when you leave ESPN. Who knows? It'd be nice if ESPN were to see us and like us after we put all these lashes in them, and then give us an opportunity to make some of that money. But who knows? Who knows what the future holds where that is concerned. All right, so now we are on to some player movement in the NFL. I didn't get to put it in the rundown, but there has some stuff that came out today with regards to some running backs in my locker room. So Latavius Murray, who has been the backup for Alvin Kamara for the last 2 seasons, he's out because apparently they asked him to restructure his contract to, help put some money on the table that we could, feed somebody else. He said no. So I guess he'll take the guaranteed money and no more because he is gone. And then we saw that Le'Veon Bell, he has been signed by the Baltimore Ravens so far to their practice squad, but the expectation is that he is going to be promoted to their active roster. So, do you guys have any thoughts with regards to these 2 running backs and the moves that they have now been forced into?
Go ahead, AJ.
No, I don't. I would love to tell you that I have some soliloquy here to speak about Latavius Murray and Lev Bell, but it's no longer 2015 or 2016. So, to be honest, I don't. I mean, what I will say about the Lev Bell situation is, I think it's an interesting move for him. As he I guess would have some sort of opportunity to try and fit into an offense. Actually, like probably will actually have a place because Andy Reid didn't use him last year, and that was supposed to be, I guess, like his kind of like redemption. Still ended up losing his place to a rookie, and he's just largely been disappointing for the last how many ever seasons. So I just I'm interested in seeing how he fits into this offense and how he will be used, to be honest. Latavius Murray, I have nothing to say on it.
Sorry to use you there, AJ, but as it's Ken correct, he said he didn't put it in the rundown. So I was just gathering my thoughts. I was like, all right,
yeah, no worries.
There so I could get my thoughts together. Latavius Murray, that is a shocker for Ken Saint, and I will explain why. This is the team that is going through some offensive overhaul. We all know Michael Thomas is likely out for a significant portion of the season. We lost your all-time leader in everything in Drew Brees. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ken. I think you no longer have Emmanuel Sanders as well, right?
No, he's in Buffalo.
Yeah.
So with all that offensive departure, you would think that you would try to hold on as many veteran players as possible. And it is not like Latavius Murray was bad last season. This is a guy who I think he had a career high 4.7 yards per carry last season.
Yeah, he did.
No, without certain players, you are going to need to be able to run between the tackles. Something that the Saints ordinarily really don't do. But this is what you're going to have to transform your team into. And to ask him to take a pay cut when he just had a career season is mind-boggling in my estimation. I don't like the move there, and I think the Saints will suffer because as good as Alvin Kamara is, and I absolutely love him, he's not a bell cow back. He's not somebody you're going to hand the ball off to 25 times a game and tell him to run between the tackles. That's not what he is. So that is a bit shocking to me. I like Baltimore taking a whiff at Lev Bell simply because J.K. Dobbins is done for the season. So too, I think Justice Hill.
Justice Hill,
so
yeah.
they're down to one running back. Yeah, I think like that was almost a necessity. Although Le'Veon Bell doesn't exactly suit what they want to do, but I think he gives them a deal. He can enhance their offense simply because we all know Baltimore wants to run the football, and Lev Bell is arguably, I don't know where you rank them. Like LaDainian Tomlinson might be the best receiving back we've ever seen, or if I know, I'm going to put Le'Veon Bell up there. Like, I think Le'Veon Bell is the best receiving back we have ever seen.
Mhm.
And if he still has a bit of juice in those legs, he can maybe help to expand the offense a bit. But the mere fact that they are without J.K. Dobbins and Justice Hill, I kind of like the Le'Veon Bell pickup.
So the Le'Veon Bell pickup for me, I'm just wondering about if he has a burst, because one of the things that made him special when he was playing in Pittsburgh was the patience that he showed when he was coming out to the line. That sometimes he would be, it was almost like if he would unfold a deck chair, lay down, take a sip from a juice with an umbrella, and then decide, okay, I'm going to hit that hole and run through it.
Yeah.
But last season when he was playing with the Chiefs, and I also was checking him when he was playing with the Jets, he was still showing a lot of that patience, but there was no burst. There was no explosion for him to get through the hole. So at this point, he would be better served just taking the ball and just running downhill so that he can get some momentum going, because he doesn't have that short distance quickness anymore just to be able to get through and keep it going. So I understand why they would bring him in. Devontae Freeman was another running back that they were taking a look at. I don't know if they're just trying to get as many old boys as they can, but they're looking at some of these older running backs who I'm not quite sure have a lot to give. No, where Latavius Murray is concerned, Justin, I take your point that we should, or you would think that we would be doing our best to maintain as much cohesion in the offense as possible and keeping as many veteran players as we can. However, the Saints is notorious for being up against the cap all the time. We just brought in a rookie running back who looked good in preseason. So technically speaking, if we got a rookie that can give us a similar kind of production to what we're getting from Latavius Murray, chances are Latavius Murray is going to be out the door. And then when you remember that all through the offseason, we were always hearing speculation that the Saints may make a change at the backup running back position. Latavius Murray may be gone altogether. We take all that into consideration. I was like, oh, they actually did cut him. Okay, I didn't see a cut coming, but okay, it is what it is. That it really didn't catch me too off guard. Now, somebody though that from someone who was cut to someone who was signed to the active roster, and AJ, we're gonna start with you on this one. Josh Norman, he is now signing with the San Francisco 49ers. Your thoughts?
Yeah, let me try to be nice. I feel like they just like the Niners just traded one washed up corner for another. I'm not to be disrespectful to Josh Norman. I think Josh Norman can still be effective, but I don't think he's the same like lockdown corner he was in Carolina, and arguably like that is it first year or first 2 years in Washington. He hasn't been that for a few seasons. I'm not wowed by the move. I don't feel like it's a definite, hey, lost Richard Sherman, but got Josh Norman. That's a really good upgrade. I think he would definitely also add a veteran presence in the locker room. I'm just not wowed by it. I think it's a decent move. I don't know how much, to me, I don't see how much it actually like vastly improves their secondary. I think it's more just to have him as a presence, because if I'm not mistaken, there are a lot of players on San Francisco's defense who are younger players. So it could be for that aspect as well. But as a footballing move, the technical side of it, not incredibly wowed by it. It's okay.
Okay, Justin?
Yeah. What AJ said basically, the move is not a well move because this is not the same Josh Norman that we knew as a lockdown corner in those Washington zone defenses anymore. But I think San Francisco didn't do it as a well move, as again what AJ alluded to. They have two solid starters, I want to think, Emmanuel Mosley and Jason Verrett. And I think for this game one, Verrett may be questionable. So it can't hurt to bring in NFL ready veteran to have there for depth in your cornerback room. And you can never have too many cornerbacks on your roster. From watching enough football, there are two places you always want depth: your offensive lane and your cornerbacks. Like, you just can't have enough. Like, especially in a league where it has become a pass happy league, and you're facing elites in that division like Arizona and Seattle. So it couldn't hurt to have, Josh Norman as your backup cornerback. And especially as AJ alluded to, I think the next two in the roster are a pair of rookies. So in a division that is so tight like the NFC West, I'm not sure that you want two rookies out there getting huge minutes. So I like the move, but as AJ said, it's not a wow move. It's not something that's going to put you over the top, especially in a division like the NFC West.
So I don't really have a lot to add to what you guys said with regards to Josh Norman going to the 49ers. Yeah, he's a useful body to have. And he may be inspiring for the youngsters who are now on the come up. But you know where my mind immediately went when I saw Josh Norman got picked up by the 49ers? I went straight to the schedule. Because I wanted to see if the 49ers were playing against the Tennessee Titans, because he got one of the nastiest stiff arms I have ever seen last season. And guess what? December 23rd, the 49ers go to Tennessee. So he is going to be, he is going to be hoping that he is not found on an island out there by himself with the big bad Derrick Henry again. And when they've also changed the rules now where you are not allowed to cut block on the outside of the tight ends anymore, it gives the corners less options. So Joshy, he's not the biggest, he's not the heaviest. He may find himself on a meme or on a WhatsApp sticker again. In a different uniform.
Again.
All right. So now we did this a couple times last season, and I think this is a perfect time to bring it back. That's what he said. This is where we look at what somebody somewhere said that we thought was either interesting or completely egregious, and we wanted to bring it up and talk about it. And this week, our target on That's What He Said is Rob Ninkovich, famously of AJ's New England Patriots. So Rob Ninkovich gets and opens his flap and says that Mac Jones, rookie quarterback Mac Jones, was teaching the veteran Cam Newton the playbook. And this was one of the reasons why Cam got cut. AJ, this is your boy, and this is the squad. So, of course, they're going to start with you. What's going on here, man?
Oh, boy. I don't know. This one stunk to the high heavens to me. Like, I didn't like it, I didn't like him making that statement. I did not like Rob making that statement. Because whether or not it's true, I don't feel like it needed to be said. Cam is no longer a member of the team. Mac Jones is now the undisputed number one. Like, let's just move on. I don't feel like we needed this little tidbit of information. But one place that my mind went to though when I saw the statement was that if it is true though, it kind of does say a lot about Mac Jones and the mental side to his ability, basically his intangibles, right? Because that was one of probably his stronger points. That was even before Rob made the statement, like in the assessment of him, like after the decision came out to part ways with Cam, one of the things that we were hearing was how good Mac is like mentally, and how he doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't make mistakes twice. So if he makes something, he will learn. So it shows that he's a quick learner. So I guess that's what kind of made this like Rob Ninkovich saying this a little more egregious to me, because I believe it could be true. I believe that it could actually part of this, even if the truth is somewhere in the midst of it. I feel like this could partially be true. So I don't like what it does, how it makes Cam look, to be honest. I'm not even a big Cam apologist, but this one was just like, I feel like we could have done without this though, Rob, for real.
Justin?
I'm with AJ on this. I didn't think it needed to be said, especially, and I'm not going to dance around this topic, when race is involved. I just don't like it, especially when you're talking about a team coming out of that Boston area. We've known how race plays such a huge part in all of their sports makeup. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's something that Ninko needed to say. And it is going to carry a lot of weight because obviously he's a former Patriot player who still has connections to the franchise. So people will sit down and say, well, if Ninkovich said it, it must be true. And we live in this era where everyone wants these hot takes. You know, everyone wants to release this information first, have this insider stuff, blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't look good on Cam. So also we'll continue to piggyback off what AJ said and say the biggest take on Mac Jones coming out of Alabama was always how quickly he processes information. It's always been how quickly he learns the playbook, how quickly he processes information at the line of scrimmage, how quickly he processes information post-snap. So this should not have come as a surprise to any of us, at least him knowing the playbook as well as he does, or reportedly does. And on top of that, there's been a story released on Tuesday where he said that, you know, every evening or every day he'd be at home with his girlfriend and they would go through the playbook together. And I'm not sure what she was doing, but he'd be throwing that whatever. So he coming out, like everyone knew the first 4 quarterbacks that were taken ahead of him in that draft. We all talk about their physical prowess, you know, the big arms, the ability to extend plays with their feet, the athletic abilities. So everyone was upset when they heard that the 49ers could possibly take in Mac Jones at 3, not realizing that one of his strengths, one of the most important traits of a quarterback, is being able to process information. And I remember, and yes, I'm that guy who's going to rub it in y'all faces, no, but just kidding. When y'all are on my show, I did tell you, if there was a situation where a rookie quarterback could start right away, I did say it would be the New England Patriots. Simply because it is a run-heavy offense. They just brought in 2 tight ends in Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. So essentially, they're not going to ask Mac Jones to do a lot. They're going to run the football, and in those 2 tight end sets, get the football out of your hands quickly into the hands of your playmakers and let them do the work. Sounds familiar, right, AJ? Like a 2001 team, you know, drums up any comparisons for you? It just, I don't want to say this guy is the next Tom Brady, but it just feels like 2001 all over again, Tom Brady, just walking into a team ready to build right now. Team plays great defense, runs the football, and all you're asked to do is not turn over the football.
Yeah, the situation does seem very familiar.
You see that 2001 thing that you just made mention of, that does not bring up any happy memories to me at all. Because in 2001, I was still very much so considering myself a fan of the then St. Louis Rams, who were the greatest show on turf. And I remember watching that Super Bowl and being very, very upset at lots of things, the officiating not being a minor part of it. Anyhow, with this particular situation, I hear what you guys are saying, and especially with Justin with that point about race. But my first thought process where this was concerned was that Ninkovich probably did hear this from somebody. I would like to think that he didn't just make this up on his own. But this is the kind of thing that we hear often not just in the NFL, but also in the NBA and other places, where all of a sudden, when a player that was supposed to be integral to your squad, to your team, is no longer there, all of a sudden, now we hear, oh, he wasn't this. He wasn't good in meetings. He wasn't showing up for practice. He wasn't that. I know all of a sudden now we're hearing that Cam wasn't good at learning the playbook. But a week ago, before Cam got cut, all we were hearing was Cam was looking better. Cam had a much better command of the playbook. And no, he didn't know the playbook good enough that he had to be taught by a rookie that has never taken an actual live snap in the NFL. Something stinks to the high heaven, and I don't think it's Cam. But this just helps to reinforce why I don't like that team from Boston. So we will move
But Ken, don't move on because you're still skirting on the issue. So I'll be that guy. What happened with Justin Fields' slide? We heard it. Everyone was seeing how, Matt Jones was supposedly this great. And I mean, I don't doubt them, how intelligent of a quarterback he is and how quickly he processes information. But yet, we did not bring up that Justin Fields had the highest score ever in a one-delete test. And I mean ever. It is that this narrative is being pushed down our throats, and I'm going to say it right now, that black quarterbacks are not smart. That they need their feet and their athleticism to make plays or whatever. And we keep hearing this narrative over and over and over again. And that's why I did not like what Ninkovich did, because you're pushing this narrative, and I'm not surprised that it came out of a state like none other than, well, sorry, not a state, but an area like Boston. And I'm quite tired of hearing it. Like, we had to go all the way back to somebody like Warren Moon, who had to fight all these fights just to become a quarterback in the NFL, despite how great he was in college, despite how great he was in the CFL before eventually making to the NFL and eventually a Hall of Famer. Over and over again, we're kept being fed this narrative: black quarterbacks are not intelligent and white quarterbacks, understand and process the game so much faster, so much smarter. But I will get off my soapbox for a second to just add this, Ken. This situation should also teach all of these players who are fringe players and are not NFL superstars, go and get your ass vaccinated. Because in the week, and I'm not saying this played a part, but in the week that Cam could not be at practice, you heard how quickly Matt Jones took over the roster. And Cam did not contract COVID-19 again. It was a mere situation where he broke protocols. That would not have happened if he was vaccinated. A word to the wise to all of these NFL fringe players: coaches are looking for reasons to cut you to start. Get your tail vaccinated.
Agreed.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said.
All right, so that brings us to the end of That's What He Said. And now we are on to Who Do You Trust? Now, last week, we started with looking at some divisions and previewing them in relation to the upcoming season. Now, of course, it would be remiss of us if we had the Packers homer here and we did not start with the NFC North. So the NFC North has been the Packers' domain for a few years now. But this season feels a little bit different, don't it? Part of the reason is because the quarterback is very upset with his general manager, and the general manager is doing everything in his power to piss off his quarterback. So, in Who Do You Trust fashion, Justin and AJ, do you trust the Packers to keep it together at least enough to win the division this year?
Yeah, because as much as the fans and the media make a lot of situations in the offseason or what goes on off the field, reality is Brian Gutekunst isn't on the field. And this is not me trying to downplay the rift between Aaron Rodgers and the general manager, as well as the front office that includes Mark Murphy, because this is very, very much real. I have done numerous shows on the situation. But the moment that Aaron Rodgers steps on the field, that's all gone. And simply because the offense is still there, every single piece, with the exception of All Pro center Corey Linsley, remains. And once those players get on the field, that off field stuff that's usually gone. These are professional players, and it's not a situation. I would be worried if the rift was between Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur. But it is clear that those two have a great relationship. The offensive coordinator is still there in Nathaniel Hackett, and the pieces of last season's best offense is still there. When you look, the MVP quarterback is still there in Aaron Rodgers. You still have the best left tackle in football in David Bakhtiari, even though he is set to miss the first 6 weeks of the season, being on the physically unable to perform list. You still have a top 10 running back in Aaron Jones. You still have the best wide receiver in all of football in Devontae Adams. You still have a good offensive line. You still have a tight end who led all tight ends in touchdowns in Robert Tonyan on your offense. You should be getting back healthy Alan Lazard, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. From what I've seen, two training camps, looks vastly improved. And this is a guy, as inconsistent as he was, led the league in yards per reception. The makings of an offense that led the league in scoring, time of possession, touchdowns, touchdown percentage, touchdowns in the red zone is still there. And if the rift was between Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur, I'd be worried. But the rift isn't. And when you see the posts that each of these Packer players are putting up, they are treating this like their last dance. Like, this is our last shot. Because make no mistake, Aaron Rodgers is not the only person that's out through the door in 2022. Devontae Adams is up for a contract extension, and they have not been able to work anything out. Robert Tonyan is on a 1-year contract, and I think he's gone. Darius Smith wants a contract extension or reworking of his contract. That hasn't happened. And then I think the cap hit number on the other Smith, Preston Smith, is too ridiculous to keep him on the roster at 2022. All four of those players I just mentioned are through the door. So that is motivation for them to try to win now. And that is why I say I trust them more so than any team. And when you look through the division, the Lions, the Bears, and the Vikings, Lions just got rid of Matthew Stafford and are clearly rebuilding with Jared Goff. The Bears are silly enough to trot out Andy Dalton for the first couple of weeks, when we all know that Justin Fields is a far superior quarterback without playing a single season in the NFL already. Yeah, like even without the offseason drama, the Packers as a team, as a roster, is by far better than any other team in the division right now.
AJ, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I mean, Justin just put everything so well. My answer is the same. Like, if I to the question, if I trust the Packers to keep it together enough to win the division, yes, I do. Everything he said, I agree with as well. So I'll just reiterate. Like, one point in particular is the fact that for me, as long as Aaron Rodgers has made the commitment to stay this season, whatever happened before, he will put aside, and he's a competitor. He will step out onto the field and play his best. Even if it is with a vengeful mind to let the Packers see what they will be missing next year when he leaves, the fact of the matter is he's going to go out there and compete and try to win. And Justin ran through like some of the other players who potentially won't be there as well. So it's like, as he said, is like their last dance too. So, but my main point was the last point that Justin made. When you look through the rest of the division, like, what are we really talking about? What are we really talking about here? Like, that's it. I mean, the Bears, we know the Bears quarterback situation is still unresolved. As much as Andy Dalton is going to be the face for a couple of weeks, we know at some point in time during the season, Justin Fields is going to take that field, and the torch will be handed over at some point. But Andy Dalton ain't good enough to lead a Bears team to beat that Packers team. And what are the other alternatives we have here? Like, just looking at the quarterback situation alone, Kirk Cousins, and then like the Detroit Lions. Like, I won't even get into like the Lions situation. The Detroit Lions are the Detroit Lions. I don't care who's under center, they're the Lions. So when you look at the rest of the division, there's nothing to write home about. So it is a Packers it is the Packers division again for the foreseeable future.
Well, I mean, at this point, there's literally nothing else for me to add, except for me to say that I too trust the Packers to win the North. I wish
Sweet.
there was somebody else that could actually take advantage of the instability that is in the organization. Winning covers everything, and we will expect that the Packers to do a fair bit of that this season compared to the other teams in the division who are most likely not going to win as much. So they'll be fine. We'll see what happens when they reach the playoffs, and then things may get a little bit iffy. So that's the North. So now we move from the North and we go AFC, and we have to make sure we have to touch on AJ's East. So the East, the AFC East, is no longer the AFC least. The AFC East is actually a pretty competitive division. And things look like if they're going to be interesting this season, especially since the most recent roster moves. So AJ, I have to start with you on this one now. Do you trust any of the teams to challenge Buffalo for the division crown this year? Because I even saw, I think it was today, Stephen A. Smith was saying that he thinks the Patriots could beat the Buffalo Bills for the division title. So AJ, your thoughts?
I would love to tell you I have Stephen A.'s type of confidence in my own team, but I don't at this point. And it is not to be disparaging about my Pats. I just think that, mind you, because I did say, and I'm pretty sure I said so on Justin's show as well, that I think we're going to come second in this division, you know, and eke into a wild card, eke into the playoffs to a wild card position, right? But in terms of winning the division, in given our situation, and I mean, we're still talking about Bill Belichick, so I know he has a plan, but the reality is I feel like Buffalo already have a blueprint from last year, and the fact that we're in a transitional stage right now, yeah, I don't see us having what it takes to take them out not at this point. And then I don't have that kind of faith in Miami, and then, well, it's the Jets. So again, looking through the division, it's not really much in the way of realistically, the only other team that I would think could potentially take out the Bills are the Pats, right? But I don't think we're there yet. I don't. Not with, like I said, not with the blueprint that the Bills had from last year. And I wouldn't necessarily say that they're definitely stronger. I think they're still as strong as they were last year. That's about where I place them. But there's not enough. There's not enough from any other team to really take them out at this point. You check me again in a year, though. Answer might be a bit different.
Your turn, Justin.
I think AJ has closed the gap somewhat when you see the offseason. And I'm not huge into huge offseason spending, but I like a lot of moves. Hunter Henry, as you mentioned, Jonnu Smith. And then you got a pass rusher. I like you, Matthew Judon, to add to an already elite defense. So I'd like the moves that the Patriots made, and I think they've closed the gap somewhat on Buffalo. Sounds weird to say after your domination of Buffalo for all these years, right? But my concern, again, is starting a rookie quarterback and expecting him to win this division. Maybe the Patriots are actually better with Matt Jones more so than Cam Newton, who's, I mean, at the end of the day, last season, Cam only threw for 8 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and, just was not his Carolina Panthers self. But that being said, usually you just go with the best quarterback in the division. And Josh Allen at this point is clearly head and shoulders the best quarterback in the division. So I'll give the edge again to Buffalo. I don't think Buffalo has done a lot to improve, by the way. So I think you've closed the gap, and I think they've taken a step back in the AFC pecking order. I will get into that another time. Miami, again, it all gets down to quarterbacks for me. I don't trust Tua Tagovailoa. And as we spoke on my own show, the Dolphins clearly do not trust him either. Like, because you would not be talking about getting into, I want to say, Deshaun Watson sweepstakes if you really trusted him. Sure, granted, I've heard some Dolphin fans come at me last week saying, well, Deshaun Watson is an upgrade over Tua Tagovailoa, which is true. Deshaun Watson is an upgrade over 95% of the league. But let's look across the league. Teams that have young quarterbacks they are trusting, or young quarterbacks that they believe into the future, you've not heard any of them get into the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. You've not heard Cincinnati talking about trading for Deshaun Watson. You've not heard the Chargers talk about going after Deshaun Watson. And these are, quarterbacks who are not as good as Deshaun Watson. But clearly it tells me Miami is either talking about, Deshaun Watson, or looking at this draft for a possible quarterback, or whether it was last season, bringing in Ryan Fitzpatrick at every available opportunity. This defense is built to win right now, but this team does not trust his quarterback, and they can understand why. He's a small man who has been injured at every level of football he's played. He shows absolutely no arm strength. And then, you haven't helped him out. You had a chance to draft the best left tackle in the draft in Penei Sewell. You didn't do that. You went after arguably the third best receiver in the draft in Jalen Waddle, who's a guy, again, who doesn't get downfield. He's an after the catch guy. You give the ball in his hands, and he makes things happen. I don't know that Jalen Waddle can do that or replicate that Alabama success in the NFL. So again, you're telling me you do not believe in Tua Tagovailoa's ability to get the ball down the field. That is not going to work in today's NFL. And, well, AJ said the Jets are the Jets. I like the rebuild, but again, as I said, at best you're seeing 4 or 5 wins. The Jets are not ready to contend in this division right now. I know I've gone on and on, but the Bills easily win this division.
So I don't know if the Bills win it easily. I expect the Bills to win it. That's what I still trust the Bills. I do not trust any of these other teams to be a true contender against the Bills. However, it comes with a caveat. The first thing is the Bills have only really, to my mind, they've only improved in the wide receiver position by bringing in Emmanuel Sanders as their number 2 because they didn't have a number 2. It was last season, that team was Josh Allen and it was Stephon Diggs. And then it was whoever else could give them a few yards and probably catch a ball for it. Oh, yeah, and Dawson Knox in coming on to the end of the season.
For a little bit.
Yeah, for a little bit. But then they bring in Emmanuel Sanders, who is a true weapon at the second wide receiver position. But the defense has not gotten much better. They haven't gotten better running the ball. So when you look at that, then you have to ask some serious questions about, are they actually built to do what they want to do? Then when you factor in the rebuild that's happening with the Patriots and the defense, a lot of the players that were out because they didn't want to play through COVID were back this season. That defense is a lot better. We have to see what happens with Stephon Gilmore, if he actually does turn up or not. But he is still there, and he is a former defensive player of the year. So they have a lot of great pieces on the defensive side. I do not like what they did offensively in this offseason. I've alluded to it at points, but I've not come right out and say it. So I'm going to come right out and say it now. Kendrick Bourne, you paid all that money for a number 3 receiver. Nelson Aguilar. Enough said. Then you have Hunter Henry, who can't stay fit. He's been injured every single season he's been in the league when he was with the Chargers. And I'm supposed to put all of my faith then in this 2 tight end set with Jonnu Smith, who was in and out of production for the Titans last season. So you spent all this money on who? On what? There were better players out there that you could have spent the money on, but you decided not to pay them. You paid these B-list guys. I know you're picking them up with a rookie quarterback. Maybe, but let's see. I don't know. What I'm seeing right now does not instill a lot of confidence in me. You guys have spoken about the Dolphins. The Dolphins don't trust Tua, so how can they trust Tua? Then the Jets, still the Jets, until the Jets show me otherwise. The Jets, like I have always said, the Jets know what the Browns used to be for so many years. And until the Browns showed me that they were no longer the Browns, and then they started giving them some credit. But the Jets, they haven't earned that level of respect from me yet. So the Bills, if they had a, just like we said with regards to the North, if there was another team that had their act together enough to properly challenge them, then I would probably pick them to lose this division. But there's no team right now that is in that position. So on go the Bills. So then the AFC North. The AFC North is recognized to be, if not the toughest, the second toughest division in football. Is up there with the NFC West. We have the Pittsburgh Steelers, we have the Baltimore Ravens, we have the Cleveland Browns, and then there's the Cincinnati Bengals, who are perpetually rebuilding. So, gentlemen, I'm going to start with you on this one, Justin. Who do you trust to win the AFC North?
All right, so who do I trust to win it? I trusted the Cleveland Browns. Sounds weird, right? But who will win it? And I had the Browns to win this up to today when you sent me the notes, or yesterday. And then I started to look through schedules. And I'm going to have to say the Baltimore Ravens win this division. Simply because the schedule that they play. I looked through both teams. I wanted to take the Cleveland Browns. And simply because I think they have one of the most well-rounded rosters in the entire NFL. And they actually improved it, unlike most teams. They added one of the best corners in the draft, I think Greg Newsome, and got a steal in the second round by taking Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who a lot of people project to be Defensive Rookie of the Year. I absolutely love the kid. And now we're getting back a healthy Odell Beckham Jr. I think this team has built, they run the football, they don't ask, why am I forgetting names now?
Baker.
They don't ask their quarterback, Baker Mayfield, to do too much. They cut the field in half for him, make the read very simple. But when I look at Baltimore, I think their head coach is the most underrated head coach in all of football, because all he does is win. And they have a very, very tried and tested method of winning games. They run the football and they play defense. Unfortunately, they lost Matthew Judon to AJ's New England Patriots, but they returned every other member of that defense. Yes, they've lost J.K. Dobbins and Justice Hill, but I expect big things from Gus Edwards. I know you thought I was going to say Le'Veon Bell, but I expect big things from Gus Edwards and not Le'Veon Bell this season. I think when I look through both teams' strength of schedule, I'm going to lean slightly towards Baltimore. I think they have Baltimore going 14-3 and Cleveland 12-5. And no, Kent, I do not have the Pittsburgh Steelers winning this division or even making the playoffs, because I saw what Ben Roethlisberger looked like the end of the last season. I saw what their receivers and that core looked like. And just that you mentioned how Buffalo did nothing to improve their run game. Well, guess what? Pittsburgh Steelers did absolutely nothing to improve that putrid run game. They did nothing to improve the passing game either. You're holding on to dear life of a guy who probably should have retired at the end of last season in Ben Roethlisberger. And your backups are what? Looking at Dwayne Haskins, and I can't even remember the other backup because he was that bad when he had to step in for Ben Roethlisberger.
For this, it's still Rudolph, right? Mason Rudolph?
Yes.
Still Mason Rudolph, yes. That is so bad. I could not even remember Mason Rudolph's name because I didn't want to remember Mason Rudolph's name. This Pittsburgh Steelers team has not improved on any of their deficiencies. And on top of that, their best player, TJ Watt, has a situation with his contract that he's upset with.
Mhm.
Who do I trust? I trust the Baltimore Ravens and the Cleveland Browns just slightly less, but I do not trust those Pittsburgh Steelers to return as the winners of the AFC North.
So AJ, just a bit of talk about the running game of Pittsburgh, but that's where your boy went too. So what?
Yeah. Overlooking Najee. But I mean, I guess what he is saying, I would hope he is saying is that they haven't done that much in terms of like, because it's really Najee alone though. I mean, the second is it still Benny Snell that's like the backup there now?
Yes, he is.
Yeah, he in the good. So so they really haven't. I mean, outside, and you'll be putting a lot of pressure on a rookie in Najee Harris, but I think you have a very good year though. But yo, I feel like Justin used my notes to prepare for this, because man just say everything I was basically about to say. Because that is the first thing I did when I saw this question. Right, I ended up checking the schedules because this is a very interesting division. We all know that, and so I really had to check the schedule to see like who I didn't put numbers to it, but I just was like looking through. Because now, first things first, the Steelers are not going 11-0 again to start the season. yeah. At that time, they might even be below 500. I ain't even doubting that, right? Overall, the thing is, they're still a solid organization. We know that, but as we said, you have to look at the quarterbacks, and they're going to start Ben again. And yeah, he's no longer Big Ben. It's more like Cripple Ben or something like that. I mean, Mike Tomlin is a really good coach, so I don't want to count them out, but I just don't have faith in the quarterback. But on the flip side, the same thing can be said because I actually have this in my notes with Justin. I think Harbaugh is John Harbaugh is criminally underrated. This man has kept the Ravens as a solid franchise for however long he's been there, right? And as much as you know Baker is my guy, right? And I feel like Stefanski has found a formula that works around Baker, but I do not trust Stefanski and Baker enough to win this division. And last year was like a game that separated these three teams, right? Because Baltimore and Cleveland had 11 wins, and then Pittsburgh ended up with 12. But to sum it all up, let me reel it back in. I have the Ravens winning the division as well. I have the Ravens finishing on top. I think they have the most well-rounded team here in this division. Well, not the most. Let me not say that, because the Browns team is very well-rounded. But I mean, in terms of the organization itself, just having the head coach as well, the most dynamic quarterback in the division. So I think when push comes to shove, it'll be the Ravens who will be able to eke out some of these wins, more so than the others. I don't like to count the Steelers out, but I'm not completely against Justin's notion that they do not make the postseason. I would not be shocked if it does not happen.
So
I would not be shocked, if that does happen in terms of them missing out.
So I will admit, you two have convinced me where the Pittsburgh Steelers are concerned, because I had the Pittsburgh Steelers still making the postseason. But I will admit, I will raise my hands and say that I appear to have been wrong when I had them as the third team coming out of this division to get to the postseason. Now, that said, I'm also, is going to be a clean sweep here again. I also have the Ravens winning the division, but I didn't do the deep dive that you guys did looking through the schedule. I agree with everything you've said in regards to John Harbaugh. It amazes me that like a couple seasons ago, there was talk of Harbaugh may have been on the hot seat. Like, what are you doing? Are you going to find a better coach at this point than John Harbaugh for this group especially? Probably not. He has never lost the locker room, and they have winning seasons year after year after year. So now is done for that team now to show the growth and move and get further in the playoffs. But the first thing that you have to do is to get there, and he does that every season. Now, I know I just said that I give the Browns some credit. I do. But it's not a $20 top up, it's a $10 top up. They get some, but maybe not enough. Because as you mentioned of Stefanski cuts the field in half for Baker, and he tries to limit the opportunities that Baker has to give the ball away. I am not a Baker apologist in the slightest. He is not somebody that I look to when I'm thinking about great or even good quarterback. He's okay. He probably would now become the new Andy Dalton, where if you have a quarterback better than Baker, then you have a good quarterback. And if you have a quarterback worse than Baker, then you're looking for a quarterback. So maybe he now takes out the Mendoza line of quarterbacking going forward. But if you have a quarterback, and I made this point to AJ before with regards to Jimmy Garoppolo. If you have a quarterback that the coach has to hide, then you have a problem at quarterback. You don't see any of the top teams, even with Ben Roethlisberger looking pedestrian. Big Ben became Uncle Ben last season. You even when looking pedestrian, you weren't seeing the coaches trying to take the ball out of his. I mean, they can't run the football anyway, so they didn't really have much of a choice. But the point still remains that they were still trying to create a game plan which allowed Ben to be Ben and throw the ball. If you have Baker, who you are still trying to restrict and limit and make sure that he doesn't give the game away, because if you let him do too much, he might give the game away, then me as a fan and a part-time analyst looking at this, I'm going to say, but if you don't trust this guy, when you need somebody to come over here and give you 350 yards and put 4 touchdowns on the board, passing the ball alone, but you're still going to try to make sure that you have Chubb, you have Kareem Hunt, they're going to get their touches, then I'm going to be like, maybe this is not the guy. But they don't have that crop, they don't have that issue in Baltimore. And for all of the things that they keep saying about Lamar Jackson is a running quarterback and everything, when you see a lot of his biggest runs, his best runs and highlight plays with his legs, they almost always start out as pass plays. He's standing in the pocket and looking around, looking to see what is happening. And then the Baltimore Ravens, who have had a very poor wide receiving room for many years now, nobody can get free. All of the corners backs are turned. Okay, here's the lane. I'll just take it then. And he just runs. That plan works. As you said, they have Gus Edwards. Now they're bringing Le'Veon Bell. So they have a stable of running backs to go with him. So read option is going to be a challenge. Then they just brought in Sammy Watkins to help with the wide receiving core. And while Watkins may not be as fast as he used to be, he's still a big body receiver that he can put a body on somebody, he can block, and then he can still get open. He can actually beat somebody in coverage and get free. So you're giving him options, you're giving him weapons, you're giving him things that he can do. So when I look at all of that, you put a nice little bow on top of it, then the Ravens win the North.
Yeah,
and lastly,
like I was just adding that I actually like the addition of Sammy Watkins. Again, it's not like a wow move for me, but I think it does help them. It does improve them in that area. We know Sammy's been, I guess you could say, for want of a better word, productive as opposed to excessively great in the last few seasons. But I think it works. And again, kind of like I feel with Josh Norman is good for some of the youngsters in that wide receiving room, probably especially Hollywood Brown too. But I like that for them though.
And they also drafted, I was trying to remember the name, so he was looking Rashad Bateman from Minnesota. So that should help them, because in reality situation, Hollywood Brown is not a true number 1 receiver in the NFL, and that these last 2 seasons have shown that.
Yep.
Agreed.
For sure. So now to bring our division walkthrough to a close, it is my NFC South. Now the NFC South, there are only two teams worth talking about in the NFC South. So we'll just get that right off the rip. So apologies to Carolina Panthers fans. We're not talking about them. Apologies. Who's the other team? Oh, sorry, the Atlanta Falcons.
Who's the other team?
Apologies to the Atlanta Falcons. We're not talking about you either. This team, this season, this division comes down to the New Orleans Saints, who are going to be the Jacksonville Saints for this week, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Who do you trust to win the division, fellas? And I feel I'm going to be on an island by myself. But who do you trust? The Saints or the Bucks?
Justin, you want to go first?
I'll go first. Unfortunately, Ken is not going to want to hear this, and he may never bring me back on the program. But, you know, I alluded to the situations earlier. You no longer have Drew Brees, which may or may not be a good thing because Jameis Winston's arm strength kind of opens up your playbook some more because, like, let's not pretend. Drew Brees never had a rocket of an arm, and a lot of your play designs are 20 yards and in, which allowed the Bucks in the playoffs to feast. Like, they're just sat down on routes and waited. I'm not sure if that's kind of the reason why I'm not a big Michael Thomas fan, because he's not a deep threat either. Like, I am never high on him because you can sit down on Michael Thomas's routes just knowing they're either going to be slants or hook routes. And I wonder now if that has to do with Drew Brees' arm strength or if that is just who he is. Drew Brees is gone. I kind of like Jameis Winston, or at least this second version of Jameis Winston we're likely going to see if what we saw in the preseason is who he's going to be going forward. But I don't like the departure of Latavius Murray. I don't like the departure of Emmanuel Sanders. As Ken said, you're consistently over the cap, so you're letting people have to walk out through the front door for absolutely nothing. And as I said, in picking division winners, typically you go with the best quarterback in the division. And quite honestly, that's obviously Tom Brady. And when you look at the Buccaneers, this defending champion team may have actually gotten better. You're returning all 11 starters on offense, all 11 starters on defense, and adding tight end O.J. Howard. I don't know, Ken, but the real deal breaker for me, again, when I went through a deep dive between the two teams, I think what really seals it now, Ken, is the unfortunate situation of winning division last year meant that you have a first place schedule. And with that first place schedule gave you my Packers, the Seahawks, and the Tennessee Titans. 3 playoff teams that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do not have to face this season. Yeah, I think that is the tipping point right there. The fact, and sorry, Ken, I don't have you winning. I tried to be as impartial as possible. You did a good job, by the way, in choosing Jacksonville as a neutral venue to play our Packers because we do not like playing in Florida. Aaron hates it. But I don't have you winning that game. I'm not sure if you beat the Seahawks or the Titans either. And as again, those are 3 opponents the Buccaneers do not have to face in 2022. I think that first place schedule is a difference between you and the Buccaneers, and ultimately I give Tampa Bay the division win.
Okay.
Justin, I'm glad you're here, boy. I'm really glad you're here. Yeah, so now I don't have to fight this battle alone because I'm always on Ken's Saints, huh? Always. In fairness, last year when we were having this discussion, did we already start doing the show already, or was this a side discussion? Either way, I think we had this discussion in our own private chat on WhatsApp, right? Mm-hmm. But I did tell Ken last year I expected the even with Tom with TB12 making the move to the Bucks, I did expect that the Saints would still win the division, right? Because they were going to be moving parts and some like growing pains with regards to like Tom getting acquainted with his offense and whatnot. So exactly what I told Ken is what came to fruition. I said the Saints will win the division. The Bucks are going to get into the playoffs via a wildcard spot. And if you have to meet them again, they'll whoop you. they are going to take you out. As exactly so shall it be written, so shall it be done. Right? This year, Ken, I am with Justin. I do not see how you win this division this year. And this is not, firstly, let me not say, this is not even to come down on the scene. This is more so, I believe that, and as Justin already alluded to, the Bucks are stronger than last year. And Tom is going to be a bit fitter, a bit healthier. He's now obviously has had an offseason with his offense, coming off of winning a Super Bowl and still having more time with these men. I don't see how you are going to take out these men. Sorry. Yeah, I don't have you winning either game against them, first of all. I don't see how they're not the best team in the division. As you said, the rest of the division don't really matter. And this is the year that y'all get dethroned, because the biggest piece for me, obviously, is the fact that Drew's no longer in the fold, right? I'm just convinced that the Bucks have the momentum and the continuity from last year. So for me right now, I honestly, I'll be very shocked if you win this division again.
Okay.
That's your
Right.
kendo.
Plant your flag. Let me go, man.
So I know when we did Justin's show last week, the Jets fan, he was humble and contrite. He would not beat his chest on behalf of his Jets. I mean, again, it is the Jets. Fair. AJ, you have been humble and contrite with regards to your Patriots, which is also fair. You do have an exceptional talent in your division as well. However, had we started Taysom Hill as my quarterback for this season, this question would have been significantly different, because there's no way that I would have put my Saints anywhere here for the division crown. However, because Sean Payton had the common sense to do what everybody knew had to be done and put Jameis Winston in as my quarterback for the season, I am not as bullish as some of my Saints fans, some of my Saints fans' friends, you know? I will not go and say that I'm going to put money on it. However, there is no way in heaven, hell, or in between that I am going to sit here and say to you that somebody other than my Saints are going to win this division. And here is why. So you talk about the schedule and the teams that we have to play, that the Bucks will not have to play because we won the division last season, and we have that first place schedule. Okay, that is fair. This is the same Seattle Seahawks that you, AJ, you always say that you don't trust because they can't get this stuff figured out and their defense has gotten worse. I can beat them. No, it's the first game of the season, Justin. Anything can happen because it's the first game of the season. However, I still think that my Saints can find a way to win this game against the Packers. No, I understand that my Saints have gotten worse on defense because we've lost quite a few players because of the cap. I don't know why is it that my cap situation is always this bad. Somehow they find a way to make it work, but it is what it is. We don't have a lot of pieces that we had last season. I'm concerned about my corners, but that's the only spot on my defense that I'm concerned. My front seven is still elite. So I'm rolling with my defense. And then we get to the offense. So my offense, last season, we had Emmanuel Sanders, who's no longer there. That's a big loss. Marquez Callaway, he stepped up quite a bit in the preseason. He's looking good, and he has filled me with optimism for what happens come Sunday and onward. But I would still prefer if we still had Emmanuel Sanders as well. That being said, Michael Thomas is out for 6 weeks. We just got to keep the ship afloat until he comes back. No, I know there's been a lot of talk, and there are lots of disrespectful football fans who call him Michael Thomas slap boy. But just because Drew Brees wasn't able to get the ball down the field doesn't mean that Michael Thomas himself can't get there. Because it's one thing to say Michael Thomas, all he runs is slants and comebacks and hook routes. It's the next thing to stop it. Remember we had talked about with Patrick Mahomes earlier on in the show. You can know what he's going to do, but to be able to stop it is something else. And when Drew Brees wasn't able to throw the ball 15 yards through the air with any sort of velocity, Michael Thomas still caught 145 balls, even though he was the only one we had on the team to catch the ball. Now we have Jameis Winston, who we know is willing to take a 40-yard shot. And we still have some burners on the offensive side that can get down the field, which now is going to force the safeties to step back. You're no longer playing 10 and 15 yards off the line. You're going to have to be at 20 and 25 yards off the line, which then gives my favorite running back and one of the best running backs in football, Alvin Kamara, a lot more room to operate. So that's my Saints. So then we take it to the other side. Okay, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We smoked them twice in the regular season to beat us in the playoffs. That stung. That hurt.
Hey, how is this you smoke them and then but they beat us in the playoffs? Nah, they smoke you in the playoffs. Say smoke them. Say that they smoked you in the playoffs. Say it.
You're not gonna get it out of me, sir. I'm sorry. Right now, I am literally praying that the AFC East and the New England Patriots can be so good this season that all of these loafers who are humbugging my division, riding Tom Brady's coattails in Tampa Bay, get out and go back to the East. But that is neither here nor there. Let me bring it back down. Let me dial it back down a bit. So, when I look at the Buccaneers, okay, so the Buccaneers have brought everybody back. Great. You have all your starters back from last season. Fantastic. That's good. It sounds really good to say that we brought back all 22 players. And yes, it is great for continuity. You didn't lose any coaches. You didn't lose any players. So you can build on what you did last season. But let's be real. First off, Tom Brady is almost 50. Tom Brady is the oldest quarterback in the division. He has just come back off of a knee surgery. He has not been one that is running. He's never been accused of being mobile. But the fact still remains that he is older again. And he has been injured and he's coming back from surgery. That is something to be concerned about. No, we talk about how Drew Brees wasn't able to throw the ball on the field. Tom Brady, for some reason, he just decided last season that he was going to start throwing the ball down the field. He wasn't very good at it. The numbers didn't back him up when he was throwing the ball down the field. And oftentimes, you had wide receivers playing as cornerbacks to make sure that the balls weren't picked off when he was throwing the ball 35 and 40 yards down the field. He's a year older. His arm is not as strong. Therefore, when I put all of that together, there is enough there. There is enough that I can see that is not quite there for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that the Saints, once they take care of their end of the bargain, they can still win this division. I do not see any team in our division doing better than 12-5. Any team. But if we can be that team to be 12-5, we can split the series with the Buccaneers home and home, we can be there. We can be sitting at the top. I see it. I don't know about you, but I see it.
There's one point you forgot to mention, though, right? And I'm glad you brought up the front sevens, right? Because, and you are correct in saying your front seven is good. But geez, on bread, that Tampa Bay front seven is arguably the best front seven in all of football. When you talk about Ndamukong Suh, Jason Pierre-Paul, and the person who I think is one of the most underrated defensive linemen in all of football, and the person, in my estimation, that wrecked my NFC title game in Vita Vea. You saw the difference, right, when Vita Vea was not playing as when he was playing, because if there's a weakness on that Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it's in the back end. But it was because they were not able to get after the quarterback when Vita Vea was down, and their back end was getting exposed when quarterbacks had time. We had to play them in the NFC title game. Granted, it was without David Bakhtiari. But my word, Vita Vea made a mess of my offensive line. And when you look, Vita Vea, Jason Pierre-Paul, and Dominican Sue are right behind them, in my estimation, the best linebacking core in all of football, in Levante David and Devin White. Woo! That front seven is something that most teams don't want to face. And I'm thankful I don't have to play the Buccaneers in the regular season this year. You have to play them twice. Hats off and best luck to you, Ken. But even without, let us say for argument's sake, the Tampa Bay offense is just okay, right? Which to me they were in the Super Bowl. That front seven, and as much as Tom got in Super Bowl MVP, I thought that Tampa Bay front seven was the reason that they won that Super Bowl. Like, they completely and utterly dominated that game. I expect them to do that this season. Again, can I not disagree with your points you made? But when I look at this Tampa Bay roster, my word, that's all I can say.
Well, I mean, I'll take what you're saying with regards to their front seven, because their front seven is good. But I still have one of the best offensive lines in football. And with the fact that I have one of the best offensive lines in football, I believe that my offensive line can do enough to help me cope with their front seven. And then when you look at what we were able or not able to do in that playoff game against the Buccaneers, yes, the Buccaneers defense played well, but Drew Brees played one of the worst games of his career in that game. I expect, and I told AJ this last season, Drew Brees was not good enough and he needed to sit down, but they're not going to sit him. The New Orleans Saints are not the New York Giants. We would never do that to our franchise quarterback. But that still does not change the fact then that this Jameis Winston, even the 30 interception Jameis Winston that still threw for 5,000 yards and 33 touchdowns, was a better quarterback than Drew Brees was last season. So if we don't get the mistakes, but you're not able to crowd the box and therefore stop Alvin Kamara from being effective, and we can get after that back end, as you said, I have seen enough here to make me optimistic about my Saints.
Justin, I'm glad you're here to witness this, because this is what my guy does season after season. You know, it gets his hopes up. I mean, we'll see how it goes this year. We'll see. Just for the record, so you know, right? I was a very big Drew Brees detractor. Like, I am really running with this. I was never running with this narrative about how great he is. And I mean, he is obviously a future Hall of Famer, and he was an exceptional quarterback, no doubt. But I was always, and I told Ken this last season, anytime that the Saints were eliminated from playoffs during Drew Brees' tenure, except for their Super Bowl winning year, Drew Brees always had a bad game or had a play or two in the game that caused them to basically be on the losing side. It's never like Drew Brees has played this exceptional game and then the team around him though. Nah, Drew Brees is always faltering. Ken, we'll wait. We'll wait again. We're going to lose this division, you know. I know, and when it happens, we can bring Justin. Just say me back there for sure. We can bring.
Please bring me back, and I can't wait.
We can be back here. Like I said, I have seen enough. This is me being objective. I'm taking the fan cap off and putting the analyst hat on. There is enough with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that they should win the division. Top to bottom, it is difficult to argue and say that they are not the best team in the division. However, until they beat the Saints and win the division, the Saints are the kings of the South. And we can continue to run the South. That's it. That's all.
All right, sir. All right, sir.
No, we've been a bit long today, but we've had a lot of fun in our conversation. Justin, thank you very much for being our first guest There is an open invitation. Whenever you want to be on, you are welcome to be here. Tell the folks where they can find you and how they can reach you.
Well, we are not an audio-only podcast. Unfortunately, we haven't gotten there as yet. We're going to have to follow your steed at some point. Usually, we are on YouTube on Monday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern. But this week, due to some issues, and also we'll say that it's because football is tomorrow night. We are on tonight, Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, as an early kickoff for the season. So you can catch us on YouTube. That is hashtag #ThisJustIn. And you can also find during the week, we post a lot of our short clips on Instagram, and that is also hashtag #ThisJustIn. So you can check us out tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. We have a live show. I am not as good as editing as these boys are. So we are not a recorded podcast whatsoever. I really tip my hat off to Ken and AJ for that. But thank you so very much for the open invitation. I was supposed to be on the show 2 weeks ago, but Ken will tell you the back and forth that has happened. And yeah, I will hopefully be on regularly to talk about NFL, especially my Packers, hopefully this season.
Yeah, it was really good. It was really good having you. This was a good spirited discussion. Also, I just really love the fact that I had some company to bash Ken Saints once again. Thank you so much for that, Justin.
No, I have to thank y'all for coming on, because the last episode that y'all were on, that was absolutely amazing. And they had a grand time. So it's always good to collab with fellow podcasters, especially our Caribbean brothers. And I've now found out that AJ is a Bajan born boy. So
yeah, my passport still Bajan.
Good.
There you have it. So as always, we have a great time on the GreenBaje podcast. As you know, well, for those who have been following us, Fantasy Spot is up next. We're recording it next. You'll see it on Thursday. You'll see it tomorrow. But as always, that is AJ today. That was Justin. I am Ken. This has been the GreenBaje podcast. We'll see you next time.